Hello and welcome to DinoPod, episode 2.
Yep.
Today we're going to talk about Charles Manson and the murderers that he told people to commit, I guess. I'm Rita.
I'm Kaz.
I'm Tim.
And I'm last week's host, Mitchell, this week. Not doing hosty stuff. Anyway, yeah.
You could have just said I'm Mitchell.
Yeah, I could have.
Yeah, that's it.
Right, so before we start, what you guys know about Charles Manson?
Nothing. I know
No.
the name. I know the name. I know he was a bad guy. That's all I know.
Where do you know him from? Like, when you hear Charles Manson, what you think about?
The first thing I think about is that he was a bad person. That's all I think about. I don't really know anything about him. Or
Fair?
So, did you, so are you saying that you went from, he was a murderer, and
I heard
first
his name in the news.
assumption was,
He wasn't a murderer, is that? Spoiler alert.
spoilers already, great.
Sorry.
No, it's, so as soon as you hear the word like crime, and then you think bad person, or do you actually know what he done?
no, I hear his name in the news. I hear that he's done bad things, but I don't know any background information about him, the full story about him. I just know that you hear the name and you think, oh, that's a bad person, but I don't know the full backstory of him.
I think that's most people.
Yeah, wasn't he like more of a cult leader as well?
He was a cult leader.
Yeah.
Yes.
The way that I know him is there's a podcast called Conspiracy Theories. The Conspiracy Guys. That's one. And I like binge listen to most of them. And they did I think it was 4 or 5 hour podcast on Charles Manson. But it's like anything, you binge watch something on Netflix and you don't have a fucking clue what they've just talked about. And so I know as soon as you start going through this, it all come back. So
Yeah.
I do know it in the back of my mind. So let's just see how we go as we go along.
Plane.
Yeah.
So that's a plane.
That is
if
a
you
plane.
hear that sound, that's a
There's
plane.
Can we go on holiday?
We're near airport. Sorry about that.
We could. Do you know what we should do? We should get on that plane and start going to the places where Charles Manson did his things.
Sure.
More to come
Alright.
later.
So, Charles Miles Manson was born on November 12th, 1934, in Cincinnati. He was the illegitimate son of Kathleen Maddox. And his dad was Colonel Walker Anderson Scott.
That sounds like the most redneck name I've ever heard in my life.
Does it?
Yes.
Yeah. So he was born Charles Miles Maddox, that's his mother's last name. But then she married the William Eugene Manson shortly after Charles was born. They had a very short marriage. They got divorced, and William Manson said that he was getting divorced because of Charles Manson's mother, excessive drinking, so she drank a lot.
So was she like a registered alcoholic, or?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And neglect of duty. So I'm not sure what that means. They don't really elaborate. So neglect of duty. Did she not wash the dishes?
I mean,
Because this was the 1930s. What do you think neglect of duty was?
Yeah, like back then it would have been, man goes off to work, the woman stays home having to do all of the house chores and things like that. So although in today's day and age we might laugh and think that's a bit funny, but back then that was that was the job, so she wasn't doing her job, which is wrong, but it's the 30s. What do you expect?
Although that could be a bit more, because when Charles Manson was 5 years old, his mother and his uncle were arrested for trying to steal a car, I believe, by holding a bottle of ketchup, pretending it was a gun. So they were caught doing that and were arrested. So clearly smart people.
So I'm envisioning someone stood there with a bottle of Heinz, pointing at someone, being like, "Hey, give me your keys or get out of the car. This is a Grand Theft Auto."
I'm guessing they reached behind him, put the bottles against his back. He's like,
Or were they at their time? Were they
keys.
thinking they can use the ketchup as like fake blood capsule? were they at the time?
well, they wouldn't scare anyone.
What is this? Some like 80s movie fucking like crime scene that they just use like ketchup and a bit of vinegar to make it look real.
No, it's usually animal blood. I know 80s films.
Yeah, so after that happened, Manson was taken in by his aunt Glenna and her husband Bill, who lived in West Virginia. I don't know where West Virginia is in the map
Ohio.
of the US.
Ohio.
Is it still Ohio?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, don't expect don't expect us to know about America because we're ignorant.
Right, there might be some errors. Please don't tell. Don't
We're-
make an essay about what you hear here.
We live in the UK, and so outside of like Europe, we ain't got a fucking clue.
Yeah,
So,
not everything might be correct, so apologize for that in advance.
We don't apologise.
Oh, that makes sense. West Virginia is in the state Virginia. That makes a lot of sense. I thought it was Ohio.
There you go. First mistake of the day.
Hey.
West Virginia is not in Ohio.
We're not doing too badly. Yes, go continue.
Not yet, no. So he went to live with his aunt and her husband, and his cousin Joanne said that as a child he could be both charming and tyrannical, constantly lying, stealing, and sometimes even displaying signs of violent behavior.
So is he just like a really obnoxious, like annoying kid, or was it kind of a little bit more than that?
Or do you reckon he was?
I think it was a bit more than that.
Do you reckon he was influenced from his parents?
It could be.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true, but I've heard in some other podcasts, he tells a story that his mother sold him for beer. There's no evidence that this is true, but he has said the story.
Good call.
So could
Good,
be.
yeah. Good job.
There you
Well
go.
done. Fucking Fosters.
Yeah, he also had an interest in music from an early age.
So what type of music?
Music from, I don't know what music you hear in the 40s. But he apparently could sing, he could play the guitar quite well.
So he just sounds like the, like...
So he was a weird child.
Do you know what it sounds like? It sounds like it's like all the hallmarks of like the perfect child mixed in with like the worst child put
Yeah,
together.
a very talented child that could follow something, but then he's also...
A complete psychopath.
I wouldn't say he's a psychopath, I don't know about that. He was reunited with his mother after she was released in parole in 1942.
Why was she in jail? Any ideas?
We just talked about it.
No, I mean, like, what did she get put in jail for many years, or is it for like a short time?
It was like 7 years, I think.
About 7 years.
Could be wrong.
So she kind of missed a lot of his childhood.
She did, yeah. And as soon as she got out, she sent him to Gibault School for Boys in Terre Haute, Indiana.
Which,
This
yeah.
was a school for boys considered to be juvenile delinquents and was run by Catholic
Oh,
priests.
fucking hell. Suji said the word Catholic. No. Was it Catholic priests as well? Who, Anyway, yeah, we won't go there.
Anyway, by age 12, Manson committed his first notable known crime. He stole some money from a grocery store.
Good lad.
Yeah.
He's starting off small. He's getting there.
Yeah, he apparently liked it because he kept stealing stuff until he was kept stealing stuff, including some cars, and
Yeah,
then
as you
carrying
do.
them across state lines, which was a federal crime. Then he first committed at 16.
So
He started early.
He
with the
he
crimes.
got in there early.
Yeah,
He capitalised on it. He started nicking cars, and then
and getting caught about
and getting
for it.
caught. So he wasn't that good of a criminal, I guess.
His mum definitely brought him up well.
Yeah,
So I think that would tie into the fact that his mother wasn't around.
yeah, he didn't like his mother.
Yeah. But to
They
be fair,
weren't
if
close.
if you're a child and you got neglected because your mother like went away to prison for doing stupid shit,
Yeah.
the first thing you do was go out and do stupid shit,
Yeah.
because she's not there to basically say.
And
"Oi."
his father wasn't in the picture. He left
Yeah.
immediately after he was born. His
mean-
stepfather also left.
I mean, put yourself in his shoes. He's young. He's got no proper figure in his life, and then he thinks actually, this life of crime is really easy. It's a lot of fun.
He's got
Yeah.
no one there to stop him.
Yep.
He could do
Yeah.
whatever he wants.
So yeah, it's going well for him. He's doing very well at the moment.
So after that, he was sent to Boys Town, another juvenile delinquent school in Omaha, Nebraska. After 4 days, he and another child inmate stole a vehicle and fled to Illinois. After being caught for more robberies, he was sent to the Indiana Boys School. yet again another school for juvenile delinquents, where allegedly he says he was bitten and raped during the time that he spent there.
What, at the all-boys school?
At the Indiana Boys School, yeah.
So is that run by Catholics as well?
I don't know about this one. I don't think so, no.
I mean, if it was, I wouldn't be surprised because, Catholics are a bit weird and they are a bit touchy-feely and they,
Yeah. After 2 failed attempts, he eventually escaped that school in 1951.
How the fuck do you... What is this like a prison but with a school inbuilt, or was it like a school that has like
So it's
a
for
bigger fence
delinquent
and like...
juveniles, so I guess it's kind of a prison, but they still have to teach them stuff, I guess.
So basically a prison with a school in it. Because I think
kind
by
of.
looking in my mind, I'm like, am I envisioning it like a normal traditional like high school with
No.
with like a slightly bigger fence than like 3 foot, just so they can't
No,
get out?
I'm pretty sure it's not that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Thanks.
After more thefts and robberies, he was caught again, and this time sent to the National Training School for Boys in Washington, D.C.
How the fuck did he not learn that? This stealing life, he's not very good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was seen by, I guess, a psychologist or psychiatric, and he said that Manson had psychological problems and deemed to be aggressively antisocial.
Aggressively antisocial?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Do you mean he was just kind of... You put him in a room with people and he just got like...
Angry, not being... No social communication with anyone, just literally communicate in anger.
Is that the thing?
Well, I'm not a psychologist, but
Why are you not a psychologist?
I don't know.
I know a bit about it because I've seen psychologists, so I kind of know that aggressively antisocial could be antisocial, wouldn't even talk with anyone, but he would, if he did talk to somebody, he would aggressive and angry towards them. Everyone he met, basically.
That makes sense. I
Yeah, that
guess.
would make sense. I don't know if it's true, but
Yeah.
that's what I'm seeing.
So from physicians then recommended he was transferred to the Natural Bridge Honor Camp. And before he could be paroled in a scheduled parole hearing, so he could be freed in parole, so he could walk down the streets.
What's
In 52,
what's different to the other schools? Why was that one?
he's not
higher
in
or-
school. He's basically in a prison that's still teaching. That's for minors, so he can't be called a prison, but he can't leave there. He's doing a sentence for crimes he committed, but it's not a prison because it's a minor. Still, I think, at this point. Yeah. So in 1952, before he could be paroled, he was caught raping another boy at knife point. And after that, he was transferred to the Federal Reformatory
So
in
that was
Pittsburgh,
when he was
Virginia.
in that prison.
Yeah.
How
So
the
in
fuck-
the Natural Bridge Honor Camp, he was caught raping another boy at knife
How the
point.
fuck do you get a knife?
How the fuck do prisons get contraband? Somebody snuck it in, I guess.
What? So someone walked in with like a knife up their ass or something, and just
I
like
don't know, maybe.
it's like, hey mate, I'll sell you this knife for you.
I don't know.
Or is it like a? I'm just
Or
saying
maybe he
like
stole it
just
from
have
like
like
a
a
guard.
butter knife or something. It's like freeze.
No, he probably stole it from like a guard or somebody who worked there.
Why has a guard got a fucking knife instead of like a big old weapon?
Okay, normally guards don't have weapons in prison. They don't have like,
This
they don't
is a
walk
m-
around with like guns.
I'm gonna say one word: America.
Also, I think
Everyone's
you're
got
focusing
guns.
on the wrong part. He raped somebody
Yeah,
at
but
knife point.
I know.
Who the fuck cares where you got the knife?
True, but that's not the most interesting bit. Where did he get his knife?
Well, okay. He was transferred to the Federal Reformatory in Pittsburgh, Virginia, where he was caught committing more homosexual crimes. I guess homosexuality was still a crime back then, which is stupid.
So is it only
Against
against
other boys.
homosexuals, or is it like?
Well, it was a boy, so there were only boys there, so the only people he could rape were boys. I don't know if he was actually homosexual or bisexual, because later on he has sex with
I
women.
mean, I'm reading here that when
Yeah.
He was in maximum security. He actually got early release due to good behaviour, apparently.
I think that was later on, wasn't it? What year was that?
Reading there.
That was in 54. Yeah, so that was later on. Yeah, I have it here.
Spoilers.
So after he was,
Tim, get with the schedule. We're
after
going
he
through the
was
story.
found having sex with the other boys, I couldn't find if that time was consensual or not. He was transferred to maximum security facility in Ohio.
Hey, that was foreshadowing. I like
So
that.
he did that on multiple times then.
Yeah.
But then
So
my question is, like, if he's done that, if he's been having sex with boys when it's illegal,
yeah.
is that added to his sentence, or does he carry out the sentence and basically get a slap on the wrist, like, don't do it again?
I'm guessing he was a slap on the wrist because then he
Yeah.
was released in parole.
Okay,
And then
that's
in
fair enough.
1955, he married a local waitress named Rosalie Jean Willis. Yeah.
How the
So
fuck-
he married a woman. So maybe he was just bisexual.
Or he was just horny as fuck and he just saw any holes to go.
Okay.
I
Bit
think that's-
gross.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
fine.
But to be fair, it's gross for a really
No,
gross
the way
person.
you put it was gross.
Yeah, but that guy was gross.
Yeah.
So as he got out, he went. Where did he live? Was he living?
So he married Rosalie, and then he convinced her to move to California in a vehicle that he stole for the trip. So he stole a car so they could move to California. And they were discovered with the car that was stolen, and he was sentenced to 3 years at Terminal Island in San Pedro, California.
This guy really doesn't fucking learn, does he?
No, he doesn't. During his prison stay there, his wife met another man and was planning to divorce Charlie. And when he learned that, he tried to escape. He got caught, and then he lost his chance to the upcoming parole. So he was like about 2 weeks before he could get like a parole hearing, so he could get out again.
Right.
But he found out that she was going to leave him, so he escaped and got caught and stayed there. I think.
This guy's brain doesn't work like any other person's brain.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, yeah. That's so weird.
Anyway, after he was released again, he began pimping women for a living. And
Was that by random? Or did he...
No, he just realized instead of saying stuff, he could make money off selling women to other men.
No, but I mean, was the women he was pimping done by random, or was it kind of like just trying to choose like the broken women, the ones
Oh, I
with the
don't-
drug
Okay, I don't know
Basically,
that.
it could be that he sees someone and goes, I choose you.
Oh, I don't know that.
That just sounds like a really shit version of Pokemon.
Basically. Oh,
Fucking Pimpamon.
I don't know.
Fucking
should have found
Pimpamon.
more of that.
I want to have that as a game. Just run around throwing the Pokeballs at prostitutes. Like, I choose you. Anyway, continue.
That sounds like who you're on GTA with grenades when you play with prostitutes.
It sounds like a really good version of the hot coffee mod from San Andreas.
Yeah, I think Mitchell's becoming Charles Manson as he keeps hearing about him.
Hey, well, everyone's
Because
got a
later
dark
on,
side.
they have very common interest. But we'll see. Spoilers.
What, me and Charles Manson?
Yes.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I'm not a
Where was I?
racist.
I'm not being funny. I can't see Charles Manson, logging on playing 24 hours of WoW.
That's not what they have in common.
Well, I mean,
Anyway, he
to
was
be fair,
also-
you can't really go out and rape
Yeah.
women and do bad shit if you just don't leave your house. It's really good.
Is that what's stopping you? You don't leave your house, otherwise you'd be raping women?
No, it's
What's
really-
happening here, Mitchell?
Is this an intervention?
Can we move on, please?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. He was caught forging U.S. Treasury checks and was arrested and given a 10-year suspended sentence and probation.
So what
So
does that
he was
mean?
caught again forging shit.
How much was he forging? Does it say?
I didn't see a number. I just saw the U.S. Treasury checks.
So when it
Suspended
says,
sentence. He didn't went back to prison.
oh, so when
So like I
so
think
what happens
that's
when
what
you
meant.
get a suspended sentence? Like, what is it like?
I think it means like. Wait, I could check that. I don't want to. But I think he means like because he's on probation, so be careful if you commit another crime. You're going to prison for 10 years immediately.
Oh, that would make sense.
I think that was it.
Okay, suspended sentence is a legal term for a judge delaying of a defendant serving a sentence after they have been found guilty.
Oh, so that means basically like you get slammed down with the 10 years, but you'll go to jail sometime later.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fair enough.
So he then moved with the two women that he was pimping out to New Mexico. They moved to New Mexico.
Oh, is that where Area 51 is? Is it run by Charles Manson?
It's not in New Mexico. The Area 51 is in Nebraska, isn't it? Yeah, because it's close to Vegas,
Nevada, Area 51.
Nevada.
And where's that close to?
It's Vegas.
I know it's
Right,
close to
Vegas is in Nevada, not Nebraska. Sorry about that. We
So-
suck with maps.
So was I closest?
I don't think so.
Someone needs to do
Near
geography
California.
again.
It's near California.
Ah.
So no, but New Mexico is close to Mexico. Anyway, they then moved to Texas, where he was arrested and charged with violating his probation, because I'm guessing that he couldn't leave the state.
True.
So
Because each state has their
he
own
was
rules.
sent back to Los Angeles to serve his 10-year sentence, which was conditionally suspended on the basis that he would not violate his probation.
Ah, that'll be the one. So that means he's got that sentence, but basically he's got like a second chance. So if he fucks up again, he goes in prison.
And he fucked up and now he's in prison.
Ah, fair play.
Anyway, in July 1961, he was transferred from Los Angeles County Jail to the United States Penitentiary at McNeil Island, Washington. When Manson's release date came on March 21, 1967, he begged authorities to let him stay in prison.
Why?
He spent all his life in prison. That's his home.
True. Actually, this happens, to be fair, I think this happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, apparently he begged him to stay, but they said they couldn't do that.
To be fair, that's why a lot of people end up staying in prison their entire life, because that's their home, that's where they survive, and they can't function in society, which is a bit fucked.
Yeah, since he was a kid, he was going to like penitentiaries and schools for boys because he was a delinquent, and then he started doing actual crimes and went to prison.
And then
And a
he
bunch of times.
forever lives in prison. So
Almost.
that's really sad, actually.
Yeah.
Imagine if your life was literally revolved around four walls, and you can't have any freedom.
Yeah.
That'd fuck anyone up. That's a mess. Jesus. Yikes.
So once he got out at age 32, he headed to San Francisco. And in San Francisco, that's where the Manson family was born.
Oh, yes.
So he met Mary Brunner. She was working at the library at the University of California in Berkeley. And Manson moved in with her. So they met, started dating, and he moved in.
Fucking hell, this guy
And
moves real quick.
Apparently, he convinced her to start bringing other women to live with him.
As you do. What, as like hey, we can make some money by renting some rooms out. We can
More like, hey, I want to have sex with other women.
Oh, okay.
Why don't they could come live with us?
I don't judge people who have like polyamorous relationships, but that just sounds like a really strange.
Yeah.
I reckon he sold it to her as, we could rent this spare room out, we can make a bit of money.
Maybe.
When all along, all he wanted to do was slam.
This sounds a bit like Hugh Hefner before his time.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Explain that reference.
Okay.
Playboy Mansion. Hugh Hefner living with like loads of young girls.
True,
They
but
were
then he
paid to
also
be
had a
there.
shit ton of money and he had a mansion, whereas
weren't
Charles
they paid
Yeah,
to be
okay, so
there?
Charles
And-
Manson probably,
Charles Mansion.
Charles Manson, there we go.
Oh, there you go. No, but that's what I'm saying is it must be like he must have looked at it from a different perspective because, like you say, they had a mansion and they were getting paid to be there. So the Charles Manson, he ain't living in a mansion. It's not Charles Manson mansion.
No, he's living like in this apartment that's
So
not even his. It's Mary Brunner's apartment.
So I mean, that's
And there's 18 other women.
Yeah, so she's reading
fucking
my notes.
18.
Yeah.
I thought it was just,
Yeah.
like I have a spare bedroom and it's usually for people to come round, but it's
No,
like,
18.
at some point there were 18 women living with them.
that's not like inviting your mates around. That's like a gangbang, like 24 hours a day. It's disgusting.
So you just get like women you saw on the street, which I'm guessing were alone, maybe crying, vulnerable. And you know what? Why don't you come to my place? I'll let you stay there for. And then you probably gave them drugs too.
I mean, I can imagine him walking around, seeing like druggies and like people who've lost everything and going, oh, this sounds like an advantage.
Yeah, so he
That's
was
fucked.
like the head of the family. So everything that they did was basically told by him.
Explain what you mean by the family.
All of the people, they call themselves a family. All of the women. It was just him and like 19 women, counting Mary Werner, and he was the head of the family. They were a family.
So instead of just being called a group or, friends or anything,
No, they called themselves a family.
they were so worked up and being in this
Yeah.
thing, they were the family.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So at points he would tell them who they could have sex with.
Because that sounds
Still was
absolutely normal.
Normal.
Yikes.
So like, do you tell one of the girls like, you go have sex with this guy? And I'm guessing that guy would then give something to Charlie, either drugs or money or whatever.
That one.
Anyway, so he has 18 women living with him, because why not? And he basically tells him what to do, who to have sex with. He gives him drugs.
So more like a dictatorship, really.
No, even
It was the start of a cult.
it's the start of a natural
So
cult.
some members said he represented like a Christ-like figure. And if you see some photos of him at the time, he has long brown hair.
So are we saying like he looks like Jesus?
He looks like
I was about to
Jesus.
say, like, yeah, Jesus.
He looks a bit
But how
like
do you know
Jesus.
what Jesus looks like?
Exactly. That's
What
fair.
if Charles Manson was Jesus?
Oh my, maybe.
Charles Manson.
Manson.
We're
Just
not
call
making
it
this a-
Charles Mansion now. It's now the Charles
Okay,
Mansion
that's
podcast.
the picture. That's the picture for the podcast. That's just going to be Charles's face on a picture of a mansion.
Yeah.
Sorted.
Yeah. Anyway, so before that summer ended, he and 8 or 9 of his enthusiasts, so women, piled onto an old school bus
Was it all women, or did
Why are
you
they
have?
called enthusiasts?
It
If
was-
they weren't.
because they loved him.
So
No,
was it?
okay.
So
Wait. Did they love him, or were they brainwashed to love him?
Ooh.
Most people
I'd say both.
would be brainwashed. I know this.
I would say both.
so what's it called? Stockholm? Was it Stockholm syndrome, or what's he? There's a.
Well, he didn't take them against their will.
Yeah, that's true.
Also,
didn't the
that's
FBI
debate.
do a thing where they kind of brainwash people into
MK Ultra, yeah.
MK Ultra? That's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's not go into that, please.
No, but this sounds like fucking like the start of an MK Ultra back in like the 40s.
This sounds like the start of a cult.
Yeah, that's true. It sounds like Scientology.
Yeah, so they... we should do one about Scientology sometime. Anyway, so yeah, they got into a bus. And they roamed the U.S. As far as Washington State. Then they went down to Los Angeles, near Mexico, and before returning to the Los Angeles area, where they lived in Topanga Canyon, Malibu.
Fucking hell, that sounds expensive.
I'm guessing they lived in the bus.
They
Maybe.
lived in the bus.
Maybe.
What's your postcode?
It's a bus.
It's the bus.
Yeah. And some parts of Venice. So, like, they would go, like, they would stay night somewhere in Malibu, and then the next day they would travel a bit down the city and spend the night there.
But you say that, a little bit geeky. The bus wouldn't have a postcode because it'd be outside the place which has a postcode.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
So technically they have a
But-
postcode.
I'm
If
guessing
you
they
imagine
didn't need a
if you
postcode.
imagine an Amazon driver going along and sees a postcode and a random little
Well, you can you
bus,
like put in the notes, actually we're living in the bus.
you
Just
could.
look for a bus.
But we all know Amazon drivers. If they turn up and your postcode and your house address doesn't like make sense and you're not in, they're throwing it over the fence, so you're not getting your package. And we know what's in that package. Let's not go there. Oh. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so one day...
You're like a dick in a box. Yeah.
Okay, Misha.
I was thinking more whips
Okay.
and chains, but
Oh
continue.
no.
Okay, you can shut up for a second.
Can we move on from that? please?
When we please do.
Okay, so one day, Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys,
Yes. I love the Beach Boys.
he picked up two family women. So 2 women of the family, Charles Manson. He picked them up and brought them to his house for a few hours. And then he went to record a session. And when he came back the next morning, Charles Manson was in his driveway, leaving his house.
Hold on, no, wait.
So he goes to the house with 2 women. He leaves them there.
No, I'm saying... No, I was thinking... So this was the Beach Boys, as in...
Dennis Wilson of the Beach
like
Boys, yes.
Surfing USA
Yes.
Beach Boys.
Yeah.
Invites 2 random women to his house. Hopes that he's not going to get fucking ransacked.
Well, I think he was hoping for sex.
Obviously, but... He's hoping that he doesn't get fucking ransacked. And
Yeah.
then he sees a random guy pulled up in his driveway.
So he's not pulled up in his drive. He's leaving his house. He's in a driveway, just leaving his house. So he's been
Wouldn't
inside
that be
there.
the time to like think, actually, this is a bit fucked. Let's call the police.
Anyway, so Wilson, this is, by the way, what Wilson says happened. Charles Manson says he met Wilson while Wilson was buying weed from him.
Ah, sounds
So they're telling 2 different things. The way Wilson tells it is that Manson was in his driveway, emerging from his house. And Wilson asked him whether he intended to hurt him. And Manson said that no, he had no such intent, and began kissing his feet, Wilson's feet. So he bent down and started kissing his feet, which normal thing. And then when Dennis Wilson entered his house, there were 12 women, all strangers, just hanging out.
I think, if you're invited 2 for a bit of sex, having 12, I think he was quite happy with that.
Anyway, instead of, I don't know, saying get the fuck out of my house and never show up here again, he befriended Charles Manson, because then he paid for studio time so Manson could record his songs.
What?
Which, by the way, if you go on YouTube, you can hear Charles Manson songs.
I really don't want to.
That's the first thing Mitch was going to do straight after this podcast.
It really isn't. So Charles Manson ended up recording in the same studio that they did the Beach Boys music, I presume, or some of the songs, or something.
Probably, yeah. So
And
he
then-
paid for
and
the
then
studio so Manson could sing and play
He
his
paid
songs.
for the studio, and in that deal, I imagine, was having sex with these women.
Yeah, basically.
This is fucked. This is really
So instead
fucked.
of surfing USA for the Beach Boys, it'd be surfing women for Charles Manson.
Charles, yeah, there's Charles Manson in a mansion again.
Yeah.
Oh my god. This gives a whole new light on the Beach Boys. They're like one of my favourite bands, and now I know that one of them's like involved with Charles Manson.
Let's put it this way: at least Charles Manson wasn't working on the BBC in the 1980s.
Wow.
Wait, what?
Tim, we're not getting into a Jimmy Savile conversation.
No, what's happening? Right.
Not happening.
Yeah, you don't get the reference, do you?
I don't know.
Do you know
Jimmy Savile.
Not really.
So
Maybe.
just in
Jim will
like
fix it.
in like a paragraph, in like a few sentences, basically, Jimmy Savile was touching up little kids and going to like mental hospitals or hospitals for children and raping them, and everyone in the whole UK loved him, and he got away with it for years.
At the same time,
And
he had,
they only really knew about him and all his stories after he passed away.
and also
Not even passed away, he fucking died, and he should have died a lot sooner. That guy's
Yeah.
that
and in the
guy's
80s, he
disgusting.
also had Gary Glitter as well.
Oh my god, we're going down a rabbit hole.
We're going off topic here.
Let's find out what happened with Charles Manson.
Oh my god.
Anyway, Dennis Wilson also introduced him to some entertainment acquaintances, so other producers, businessmen, including Greg Jacobson,
Yep.
Terry Melcher, who was the son of Doris Day,
Okay.
and Rudy Altobelli, who owned the house which Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski was living in.
Was it a mansion?
I was
It
going to
was a
say that.
mansion. Well, I
Okay.
don't think it was a mansion, but you know. Anyway, in August of 1968, he moved the family to Spahn Ranch, which used to be a movie set. So
As
they
you
would
do.
film westerns there. It was politically abandoned, but whatever. They moved in there
That
after
sounds actually quite cool. Living
after
on, like,
the
a film set.
the manager of Dennis Wilson evicted them. So basically, they were living in Dennis Wilson's house, and his manager was like, "You guys need to get out of here." So they went and moved to a nearly abandoned movie set.
To
Spawn
be
Ranch.
fair, if you were as a kid, you're saying that you could live on a Western like movie set, well, sounds quite cool. Until you say the word Charles Mansion, and you go, yeah, it sounds a bit dodgy.
Who wants to guess how they were allowed to live there? Because there was like an older guy who took care of it.
What,
was very old,
this Hollywood
nearly
set
blind.
of the movie set.
The Spawn Ranch, which is not a movie set anymore, used to be.
So you said that guy was blind.
Nearly blind.
Please don't tell me you took advantage of that.
So basically, he would send women to have sex with the old man, so they were allowed to stay there.
Oh, I thought that was going to go something worse. I thought he was
He
going to...
was not going to kill him.
No, not even that. I thought he was going to say, oh, there's only 1 or 2 people there because he couldn't see what they were. Like, how many
No.
people were there?
So
Okay.
the man would just have sex with the women, and he allowed them to stay there.
To be fair, that's not even that bad. That's fine.
Well, it's bad from the old guy. Just thinking. Well, he's taking advantage of an older guy.
Not even that. The older
No,
guy had his
man.
own decision. He ended up having sex with people, like, I'd probably say daily, weekly, whatever, for just using a thing that he has in his back garden or something. So it's not terrible. It's not drugs or something stupid. That's fine.
Fair.
It's
Yeah.
not fine, but it's fine.
Yeah, in November of that year, also established some alternative headquarters in Death Valley, where they occupied 2 unused ranches, Myers and Barker. So they had different, like, little places of operation. He then started saying that racial tensions between black people and white people were about to erupt, and he predicted that the black people would rise up in rebellion in American cities. So black people would take over America. That was his prediction.
What year is this?
1968, 1969.
So this was all along the whole black and white divided American, get to the back of the bus type time. Or was that
I think
slightly
it's
after?
slightly after, wasn't it? I'm
Yeah,
pretty
well,
sure it was in
it's the time of like Black Panthers. Still, he didn't like the Black Panthers, which were a big blacks' rights movement.
So I imagine because of
were
where he's
violent
from,
sometimes.
it was his mind was still set on
Yeah.
the old ways. Sorry, let me rephrase that: the old fucked up ways. Continue.
Yeah, so he explained that the social turmoil that he'd been predicting had also been predicted by the Beatles. And that's what the White Album was about. So the Beatles wrote the White Album,
One of the best albums of all time. Yes.
yeah, and Manchin declared that all of it, what he was predicting, the rebellion of black people against white Americans, was foretold in the songs in code.
I know the songs on there, and I didn't want to create a cult. I didn't want to end up living on a ranch. That's fucked. That's just taking something completely out of context. That's very strange.
That's where the Helter Skelter came from. He called his movement Helter Skelter from the White
That's
Album.
not what the song meant.
What is the song about by now?
Just Google it. Trust me.
No, you know the album, right?
Yes.
So tell us what the song is about.
What I do, I want to put the track in there. I'll put the track in there.
And you get
We can't put the track in there.
I can.
Copyright.
You
I'll
can't.
put what I do is I'll put a clip in
Of you singing it.
of Rita singing it, and
of
then
you
I'm going to
singing
let the viewers
Yeah.
decide. Sorry, the viewers. I'm going to let the listeners decide what the lyrics of Helter Skelter actually means. And once you listen to it, you'll know that what he's going on about is completely wrong. Continue.
So according to an article that I've seen, Helter Skelter was written about an amusement park, which doesn't sound like a war coming in.
Yes, you're right.
I mean, I haven't been to tons of amusement parks, I'll be honest. When I think of them, I don't think, holy shit, war is about to start.
Depends what your viewpoint is.
I guess.
I mean, the only time I can envisage war at a theme park is when there's a 3-hour queue for a ride.
Yeah, you're right.
Maybe he had a bad time in the amusement park.
Actually, if he was close to like California, maybe he'd been to like Disneyland and didn't get like a fast pass.
When did Disneyland open?
Oh, that was 1959, was it?
Probably. I'm not sure.
What was it? 90?
It was open in the late 60s for sure.
No, it was 1959, I think, or I think that was around about that
So
time.
maybe that was it. He went to Disneyland.
So did he go to Disneyland?
A black family was in front of him.
Yep.
He listened to Helter Skelter. And boom, war's coming.
Yeah, definitely. Or he didn't get the fast fast pass to like,
Yeah.
I don't know, Hollywood Tower of Terror, and he had to stay in line for like 3 hours because that ride's like the best ride of all time.
What a shame.
I want to do a Disney podcast.
Completely off topic.
Hey,
It's on topic.
it's always on topic. People link Disney to like the far right movement as well because people are weird.
Yeah.
We're doing a podcast on that.
Aren't we all
Okay.
weird? Isn't every one of us weird their own unique way?
I'm perfect.
I know I'm perfect in every single way.
I'm weird and tired. That's a bit of both, isn't it?
But you're tired every day.
Not every day.
So throughout 1969, he started talking more to his members about Helter Skelter and the war was coming. And if it didn't come soon enough, then maybe they should help it along. Just, give a little nudge.
By doing what?
By doing crimes. Anyway, so Kaz, at the beginning you said that when you thought of Charles Manson, you thought of a murderer and an evil man.
Yeah.
He actually never murdered anyone.
See, that mistake.
Technically.
He tried, which I'll get into, but he actually never murdered anyone.
See, that I'm quite surprised by that because that is usually my first assumption when you speak about somebody on the news who's done a lot of bad things. That is usually the first thing that you would go to about somebody, about a bad person. But now that I've read up about knowing more about him and his backstory, still a bit of a sick guy, twisted guy, but my first assumption when I first heard about his name, I thought he did. I don't know if it's that for everyone. I don't know if you hear some kind of person on the news who's done a bad thing. Does anyone else think the first thing is murder?
I think so, because when you think of the crimes, which were the Tate and LaBianca murders, you'd think somebody who was in jail for it for the rest of his life would have actually killed some of those people.
Yeah.
Mitchell, get off your phone, please.
Yeah.
I'm being offended right now.
Hey, be quiet. You're not Greta. You're Rita. Stop getting offended.
I'm very offended.
No, can't continue.
But while he never actually killed somebody, he did try. So in July, in May of 1969, he shot a drug dealer named Bernard Latsapapa Crow.
Oh, what a name. Lots of papa. Love it.
Lots of papa.
Latsapapa Crow. After they argued about a drug payment. So Manson shot him, left him for dead, and thought he'd actually killed him. But he didn't.
Oh.
So he thought he'd killed this drug dealer, which was a black man.
Of course.
But
So was it over the drugs, or was it just because he was a black man? Or was
could be a bit of both. But so they had an argument about drug payments. So I think Charles Manson didn't have enough money to pay him for the drugs.
I'm not surprised living
So,
on a farm with
boom.
no fucking job. You probably haven't got enough money.
Well, they made money from stealing and selling sex.
Yikes.
But yeah, so he shot him and left him for dead, and he actually thought he killed him. But Bernard here, Latsapapa, did not die, and actually went kind of into hiding, and only resurfaced at the trial to say that, yeah, that was the guy that tried to kill me.
How lucky do you have to be to survive not only getting
I guess
shots?
depends on where you shot. I guess
It could have been it could have been a certain. It wouldn't have been a deep wound. It would have been.
So don't comment on this, but I guess he was probably shot around the shoulder, chest area, and fell down and just lay
No
there.
internal organs
And
They
Charles
didn't say
Manson in his luck is like ran away, and then he like
Assumed
went to
that
a
it was-
hospital or something.
Now that's very lucky.
Yeah. 2 months later, after that, Manson told his followers to steal money from his friend, Gary Hinman. And they went in, they took him to Spawn Ranch, and they held him for 2 days, like hostage,
Why?
for his money, which he didn't have much. Like, honestly, he didn't have any money. So, Manson cut Hinman's ear, and then told Bobby Biosley to kill Hinman. So I guess he learned not to do the shit himself.
Yeah.
So then this time he didn't kill Gary. He told somebody to do it.
So
And
he
he
had
did it.
So he had like an alibi and like a clean sheet.
Yeah. Which is messed up in a
That's
different
really
way.
fucked. Imagine being that powerful that you can just tell.
To kill this person.
You're like, hey Tim, do you know that person that like got in your way the other day? Quickly going, shoot him from please. And then you go, yeah, sure, mate. I'll go do it for free. Don't you worry.
It's a bit fucked up.
That's not even fucked up. That's just like, that's like complete like mental, like, what's the word? Like, that's just like mentally controlling other people, like completely. Manipulative, that's the word.
Manipulative.
That's true
Yeah.
MK Ultra shit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they, like... I don't think I would ever do it. Like, I guess they were drugged. That's the thing. They're on tons of LSD because it's the 60s and flower power and whatever. So they're doing drugs every day. And the guy that's giving them drugs is asking them to do this, and they do it because they want more drugs.
True.
And then if they don't do it, maybe they're afraid that Manson will kill them, or tell somebody else to kill them, or just stop giving them drugs.
Well, I mean, there's been cases where on other crimes, like the abductor manages to convince the person that they're abducting that they're doing it for like a good cause.
Yeah.
So I think it's very likely that they were completely brainwashed to do exactly what they were told, even with or without the drugs.
Yeah.
I just think the drugs were an accelerant. Like they were just kind of like that was the reason, but not actually what happened.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think what you can actually, any one of us can be completely brainwashed. Like if someone chooses to, they can completely brainwash you. If you got targeted, it's a bit scary. You could just be like sat there, like doing your day-to-day stuff, and next few days and next few months you're doing something completely different, and you think that's completely normal just because someone says to do it.
Yeah.
That is messed up. That is some MK Ultra bullshit.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It's weird and scary.
Stop waving at the fucking aeroplane. I want to be
The
on
fuck,
one.
Tim?
I want to be on an aeroplane. We'll take a trip to America, to a desert,
We'll take the podcast on tour.
with a podcast on tour.
Anyway, because Alter Skelter needed happened, the Manson family, tried to blame Hinman's death on the Black Panthers.
Okay.
So they wrote Political Piggy.
So explain what the Black Panthers were to anyone that doesn't know.
So the Black Panthers was this movement in the 60s by black people who wanted equal rights.
That sounds normal. That sounds fine.
Yeah.
So basically, because they put their head above the precipice, they just kind of got shot down for it.
I'm not super knowledgeable on the history of that, but
Just by the sound, by the sound of the definition, that
they
sounds.
probably got into some problems with the police for protesting their right, like for their rights, and probably got a bad rap amongst white people.
Well,
So they were trying to blame
not white people, Americans.
Americans are more than just white people.
Yeah, but America.
America, fuck yeah.
We're not saying that all Americans are bad, but a lot of you are.
That's not true. So they wrote "Political Piggy" and the Black Panther symbol in blood on the wall, hoping that the police would see it. And they immediately thought, well, that's a Black Panther. They did it. Case closed. That did not happen. And Bio Soleil, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that name wrong, was arrested for the murder and taken into custody on August 6th of 1969.
Ew.
Yeah.
Not long to go till the Beatles actually do the whole rooftop goodbye shit.
Yeah, so maybe he was predicting that too. And he was right.
Probably was.
Anyway, Manson kind of freaked out when the guy was taken into custody. He was afraid that he would crack under pressure and tell everyone that Manson told him to kill him, and tell police that Manson shot Lotsa Papa.
That is such a cool name. I don't care. I don't care if it's even his drug dealer name. That is an amazing name.
And then after that, 2 other members were arrested for stealing a credit card. Yeah, they were arrested, which made Manson freak out even more and start raging about shit.
So what did they just?
They stole a credit card.
Stole a credit card.
They were caught and they also went to prison. Or not prison, they were in custody.
But as we all know, I don't know if it was different back then, but police don't usually investigate something small like that. So do you think the police were basically on it?
It wasn't just. I'm guessing it wasn't just two.
It gave him like them. 2
people like that happened to sell a credit card. It was probably they lived in a spawn ranch, which probably meant they weren't the cleanest of people. They probably looked like druggies.
And I imagine that
they assumed that they were going to use the credit card to buy more drugs.
And because it was tied to Charles Manson, I guess that.
Well, they didn't know that Charles Manson existed yet.
No, but I reckon it gave. If you have that many people on a ranch living, the police probably knew what was going on anyway. But
they probably knew something, like a bunch of hippies were just sleeping there.
And they were just like, although, we might not agree with this, or, this might not be what I call correct, or but there's no law getting broken, they might have just been like...
They didn't think it was a problem yet.
No, which is quite...
Yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, that happens a lot with police, is they know something bad's going on, but it's no law broken, so they keep an eye on them. So this might be a reason for them to kind of get involved and see what's going on.
So do you think American police all like Chief Wiggum?
That's very stereotypical, Tim. We like Americans on here. You guys actually do a really good job. So we're not throwing any shade at you guys. Just Americans. Continue.
Stop, please. Where was I? Yeah, so the other 2 got caught. So now he had 3 family members in custody in the police, and Charles Manson went crazy. What are you guys? Stop, please.
Come on.
Anyway, so his brilliant idea was, let's murder more people. So people...
Sounds very logical.
So the Biosheli guy could be... Fucking stop doing whatever the fuck you're doing.
Basically, obviously, nobody can see this, but the men in this podcast are always on their phones.
Hey, I'm just saying him to stop touching the table, because I can see the waves on Audacity going.
Also, stop hitting your phones and doing like weird gestures. I'm trying to focus here.
I'm trying to do some research on.
No, you're not.
Tim, you had all week to do research.
Stop lying to me, Tim. Where was I?
To be fair, what he's actually doing, he's just probably looking at like, when's Swansea playing the next thing, or when's this team playing the next thing?
Probably.
Oh no, he's actually doing research.
Okay.
He's actually provided questions.
I'm sorry, Tim.
He actually Googled really quickly.
I'm sorry, Tim.
Continue.
Can I
Go
continue?
to the open tab and it's Swansea.
Okay. So Charles Manson's idea of proving that the Bio Soleil guy didn't kill Gary Hinman was to do more murders. That way, if he's in prison, well, he's not the guy then. And they would release him and not tell anything else on him.
So,
So
they're
the
basically
problem to resolve murder charges, you kill more people, basically.
that. What?
Sounds
So,
about right.
so that's basically like putting the murderer in prison and hoping that there's no more murders. Instead of going, we've got the murderer, so there won't be any more murders, or we might have got the murderer, so let's try and look for the other murderer.
Well, his idea was if he's in prison or in custody and they murder more people, that would prove that he wasn't the one that killed Hinman, and then releasing the Bolos Soleil guy.
But what's not
And
to say
probably-
that they both weren't fucking murderers?
Well, that's what happened, basically.
Exactly.
So two
Just throwing more people under the fucking bus.
yeah. So 2 days after the Bolos Soleil guy was arrested, Charles Manson told Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel to go to the house where Melcher used to live. So Melcher was Terry Melcher, which Dennis Wilson introduced him, and Manson was trying to get a record deal with him or something.
Oh, what, for when they were in the studios?
Yeah, so Manson wanted to do an album.
As you do.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Oh,
So
I make music and that lot, and just on my off time, I have a load of people that follow me as like a cult.
Yeah.
As you
So he was pissed at Terry Melcher, although he didn't live there. That's why that house was started, because that was the house where Terry Melcher used to live. And he told him to enter and to totally destroy everyone as gruesome as you can.
do. Oh, yikes.
So on the night of August 8, 1969, Tex Watson took Susan Atkins, Lynn Cabassi, and Patricia Walker to their house. And, well, the Tate murders happened. Which was why they became famous, because they murdered Sharon Tate, which was a famous actress that was married to Roman Polanski.
So how are these? I don't want to go into gruesome details, but how were the murders carried out? Was it like a quick run-in shot, boom, boom, dead, or was
Unfortunately,
it more?
no. So on
Oh,
that
God.
night, they killed 5 people. Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
A friend, an ex-boyfriend, Jay Sebring, a screenwriter, I believe. I'm sorry for pronouncing his name wrong. Wojciech Frykowski, and his girlfriend, Abigail Folger, and also Steve Parent, an 8-year-old who was visiting William Garrison, who was like the caretaker of the house and lived in a guest house a little bit away from the main house.
So they lived in a mansion.
They lived in a pretty big house. So on that night, they got into the car and they parked at the bottom of the hill that led to the estate, so the house, and walked up to the house. And strangely, Lyndon Kabassian, she stayed in the car. I don't quite understand why they didn't take her, but Tex Watson told her to stay in the car.
Do you think she like chickened out at the last minute, kind of like, or was it more strategic, like sit in the car and then beat the horn or something if there's someone that comes up?
I don't think so, no. Because she went there. She
Full
stayed
well.
out. She went there, just stood outside, like, kind of keeping watch, I guess. But like, what was she supposed to do? Like, there's like screaming inside.
Just sat there like.
She just sat there, just listening to the screams.
Do you know what it reminds me of? Have you seen the movie Ali G in the House?
No, I haven't.
They're just like he goes, just beat the horn, just like beat the horn if you hear any trouble. I reckon she was just sat there, kind of going, watching out, and then she'll beep, and then those guys can all fucking run off. That's probably what happened, I imagine. But I don't know. We'll have to have a look into that. Yeah, continue.
Anyway, so when they got there, they parked the car, but then they saw headlights approaching them from the property. So Watson ordered the women to hide in bushes.
As you do.
And he stepped out and ordered the approaching driver to a halt. So basically, I stood in front of the car. get him to stop. And the 18-year-old was driving. He had been visiting the property's caretaker. So Watson went up to the window and pulled the .22 caliber revolver at the young dude, and he begged him not to kill him, claiming he didn't know anything. And then instead of shooting him, which he had the gun pointing at him, why didn't he first lunged at the guy with the knife, parent with a knife, gave him a slash on the palm of his hand, and then shot him 4 times in the chest.
Why did he slice him on the hand?
I don't know why, like...
Could it be like a symbolism?
I don't
know. He had a gun and attacked him first with a knife, and then shot him 4 times.
Did he ever do that, like, knife hand thing again, or before?
Well, he didn't. They stabbed people. Yeah. Watson then ordered the women to help push the car further up the driveway, so the car wouldn't be, like, seen in the driveway with the dead person inside. I think. It's raining now.
But yeah, no, so...
if you can hear that, it's because it started pouring down. Okay.
I love the UK, it's great. It's like, it rains 99.9% of the time. You might get an odd sunny day.
Yeah. So after they killed Stephen Parent, they walked to the front lawn, and Linda Kabassian helped search for an open window to the main house. And when they discovered one, Watson cut the screen of the window so they could get in. He then told Kabassian to keep watch down by the gate. She walked over to Parent's car and waited. They removed the screen and entered to the window. Watson removed the screen and entered the window, and then he opened the door for Atkins and Kruwinkle to walk through the front door. When they entered, sleeping, Frykowski was sleeping in the couch in the living room, and Watson kicked him in the head. Frykowski, I'm sorry about that name.
Why did he kick him in the head? Why didn't he just shoot him?
I don't know, to wake him up, because they're evil people. So when Frykowski asked him who he was and what he was doing here or there, Watson replied, "I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business."
He's definitely some...
So Charles told them to do it as gruesome as they could, and instead of just shooting people and getting over it with,
instead of rocking up, leaving no evidence, they did
what Charles wanted, as gruesome as they could.
Whilst they just sat there, like, sleeping, whatever, quickly shoot him in the head and then leaving. They woke him up.
Be as painless as possible.
Yeah, they just woke him up and did, like, the worst thing that they could have done. That is horrible.
So then Atkins, with Crinkle's help, they found the other 3 occupants of the house, and they brought them to the living room, and they tied them up. They tied them all up. Tate and Sebring, so Jay Sebring, they were tied together by their necks with some rope they brought and slung over one of the room's ceiling beams. So, like, they tied one of their necks, slung the rope over the beam, and then tied the other guy to the other end of the rope by their neck too.
Ouch.
Yeah.
So essentially, if one went off of it, the other one would die. Yeah,
they would, like, strangle each other.
So they both had to, like, stand there and just, like, hope that someone doesn't kick up whatever's underneath them away.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So Jay Sebring started protesting because they were treating Sharon Tate quite roughly, and she was pregnant. So he started protesting to, like...
They start having some morals, like, when they're there, just killing people.
Yeah. So, like, Jay Sebring started protesting because of Sharon was pregnant, and Tex Watson's response was to shoot him. Yeah.
So why did they shoot him? Why didn't they just, let them fall from the...
I guess there was some slack on the rope. It wasn't that tight, I guess.
And I imagine the rope would have to be very strong to hold two people.
Yeah. I mean, they were like, I don't think they were like hanging from it. They were just tied to it. They were like sitting or kneeling or standing up, but they weren't hanging from it, just tied.
Just basically to stop them fighting back.
Yeah, I guess. At some point, they took Abigail Folger back to her bedroom to get her purse, which then she gave $70 to the intruders. Unfortunately, that didn't prompt them to leave. After that, Watson then stabbed the groaning Sebring 7 times. So Sebring was still alive after he was shot.
Yep.
And he was groaning, and so Tex Watson stabbed him 7 more times.
To kind of not have another trial case where you think you shot, you think you do, but you don't.
Make sure they were then, like, have as much blood as possible, because they were fucking gross people.
I don't get how anyone can see another person and do this to them. There must be something inside their mind that is different to everyone else's.
Maybe.
Unless everyone's got in their mind, but only, you have to either get unlocked in your head or it's just in your head. I don't know. I'm going to put some more research into this because this definitely is... The psychology of murderers is a topic that I'd love to cover, but I have no reason or no knowledge of going there. Because there must be some innate, like, tribal thing in your head, like, where you can kill someone or something. Unless we're all just kind of, yikes.
So Tim's showing us a picture of Charles Manson later in prison.
I'm just intrigued. He's actually got a swastika on his forehead.
So yeah, that was after he went to prison. He cut
He cut an X originally, didn't he?
He cut an X into his forehead, and then he got a swastika.
Some people are just beyond help. You can't help them.
No, yeah, I don't think so. So Frykowski's hands had been bound with a towel, and he managed to free himself from the towel. Who ties somebody else with a towel? That's like asking for the person to free themselves.
You might as well just fucking put them together with a cardboard. You can just easily fucking get out of a towel.
Yeah, so he began struggling with Atkins, trying to get freed, and he was stabbed. She starts stabbing his legs to try get him off her, because she was guarding him. Yeah. Great guard, by the way.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, he managed to get his way towards the front door, onto the porch, and then Tex Watson caught up with him and struck him over the head with a gun multiple times. After that, he stabbed him and then shot him twice. I keep coming back
to it. Why wouldn't they just, shoot him, then stab the fuck out of him, and then just be like, yeah, we've done it the gruesome way as possible. Like, surely it's more work for them to start... I know it sounds really gruesome, but, to do all this.
Because I don't think they really know what they're doing.
They've just been told to do a thing.
They probably weren't sober.
Or it's like anything. You turn up to your first day at a job. You ain't got a clue what you're doing, and so you're just doing anything you can to try and look like you're not a complete amateur.
No, the whole thing was a mess.
And by the sound of it, this was amateur hour number 1.
Yeah. So Linda Kapassian, who was by the car,
she's still outside. She's still outside at this point.
Yeah, she started hearing screaming, and she walked towards the house, and she said to try and stop the massacre. She told Atkins that somebody was coming, so she says she tried to stop it.
But surely
halfway through.
Surely you'll just drive on and get away from there.
No.
That's
the thing, because it was by the sound of it, because they were a family.
Yeah.
She probably got she did. Let's say, for example, your family member or someone, your close friend is in trouble. What do you not do? You don't just fucking ditch them and just leave them, would you?
Yeah.
So, and
During the trial, like, we can talk a bit more about her because she was an important person to get them to actually be convicted.
I mean,
And she talks about why she didn't leave the.
well, I mean, it's simple.
away.
It must have just been like, you know, they were a family as such. So you don't
Also,
ditch
you
each
just
other.
saw a bunch of your family members
Get it?
brutally killing people. You'd be afraid, like, they're going to turn on me if I do something.
Yeah, that's true. That is
Right?
very true. You don't provoke your attackers, and by the sound of it,
Yeah.
although they were attacking someone else, she didn't want to provoke him.
Yeah. So back inside the house, Abigail Folger had escaped from Karinkle and fled out to from the bedroom door to the pool area. She was pursued by Karinkle, who caught her, stabbed her, and then finally tackled her down to the ground. So she ran away.
So this was the pregnant one, right?
No, this was her friend.
Okay.
So she managed to free herself. She ran away. Karinkle managed to caught her, stab her. She ran away again, and then she was tackled to the ground. She was then killed by Watson, who stabbed her 28 times.
28
Yeah.
times. Not a you know, 1 or 2 stab just to make sure. This was a crazed fucker who basically saw that they were no longer alive and just kept going because they probably enjoyed it.
Yeah. And as this was
That
happening,
makes me fucking sick. Yikes.
Fry Kowalski, who's been stabbed and shot 2 times and whacked in the head by the gun, still managed to struggle across the lawn, trying to escape until finally Tex Watson murdered him with 51. He managed to stab him 51 times and finally killed him.
I thought 20 odd was bad. 51
In
times.
total, yeah.
So this guy,
Also, how resilient is this guy? He was shot twice. He was whacked in the head. He was stabbed in the legs.
He's seen the worst things.
And he still managed to try and escape. He couldn't, unfortunately, but
More importantly, how big is his mansion?
I don't know.
Oh,
Probably like a few bedrooms. They had a pool.
they had a pool.
Big front lawn, yeah.
Hey.
So the last one alive was Tate. She was still inside the house. She apparently begged them to like take her and let her live until her baby was born, and like just offered herself as a hostage so her baby could live. Because right now, like, all of her friends are dead, and her mind is not saving herself; it's saving the baby. So she offered herself as hostage.
Imagine being in that position where you know you're going to die anyway, and
Yeah. So she wanted to save the baby.
what happened?
Either Atkins or Watson. We're not sure who, because they keep changing the stories.
As you
Or
do.
both. They killed Tate, who was stabbed 16 times. Tex Watson later wrote that as she was being killed, Tate cried for her mother.
That's just continue. I can't.
It's
I'm
fucking
I'm barely processing this. This is fucked. Yeah, just continue.
Yeah. So before they went to the house in Spawn Ranch, Manson told the women to leave a sign. So using the towel that had bound Frykowski's hands, Atkins wrote "pig" on the house's front door in Tate's blood. They then left, and on the way to Spawn Ranch, they changed out of their clothes and disposed them on the hills along with the weapons. So, like, they got off the car, changed clothes, and just threw everything down a hill.
So
It's like, ugh.
by the sounds of it, I don't even know. Do you think they were being clever and trying to try and stop as much like evidence from being like found, and by bunching everything up, chucking it down
Well, they
there.
wanted to link this murder back to Gary Hinsman murder because they wrote political piggies in his blood,
Yep.
and now they wrote pig in Sharon Tate's blood. So they thought that this would start a war between black and white people. That's what Charles Manson wanted, because Helter Skelter and all that shit. I mean, you've been quiet, Cass.
I don't know what to say on the matter. I'm just listening to the story itself because I've never really heard of the full story. I've heard of the name.
Yeah.
I've heard of her, but I didn't know the full story of what had actually happened to her and to the other people. So I didn't put any comments towards it because to me, that's a whole new story that I've never actually heard of the whole story before, what had actually happened. But it is sick of what happened to each of those people.
But in your mind, do you think what you knew that she was murdered?
Yeah, I've heard of the name.
Would you even in your wildest nightmares think that it'd be like this?
No, because I just think that it would be a brutal murder. The majority of murders can be quite brutal.
And this wasn't?
No, it is. It's just that when you read about stories of people that have been murdered, especially like famous people, it's very rare when you read up stories about famous people that have been murdered. But the majority of the people that have been murdered over time in different kinds of stories in the history, obviously all of them are going to be brutal. That was brutal.
So that's worse than what you imagined.
No, it's the same as any other kind of story of someone who's been murdered. It's when somebody says about somebody that was killed or murdered by somebody, you think, okay, this is going to be a brutal story, and it's horrible in what way they are killed. The ways that there's so many ways people can be murdered, and when you hear like if they've been stabbed or shot, even worse scenarios, it's horrible to hear. It's horrible to hear what they went through.
Yeah, I totally agree, but we'll discuss this at the end. So, yeah, it's just very difficult to process. I mean, for many of us, it's not our first rodeo in terms of listening and watching like crime stories, but it's when you're sat there, like listening to a story.
Yeah, just focusing on that.
Focusing on it and then thinking about it.
And then in one
makes
of
the whole crime.
One of the sentences, one of the questions that goes through your head: why would somebody do something like that?
Yeah, I've got to say the same thing.
So yeah, it's just sitting here listening to a story, because I imagine a lot of people listening to this now would be kind of, walking around, going to work, going to school, going to, a doctor's appointment, or going to this, that, and the other, or sat at home, doing other stuff.
Yeah.
If you actually take a moment and actually think about, like, put yourself into that room. Yeah. Imagine it. It puts a face to a name. If you imagine it was you there, that makes it a completely different type of story.
So I knew the story before, and I've seen lots more podcasts and documentaries, but just reading it out loud, it's so
I think as much as pictures kind of, so pictures tell 1,000 words obviously, but I think if you're listening to this, especially for some of us for the first time, you create him so much more vividly than any reconstruction ever could. So you're probably thinking in your mind like what actually happened.
Oh well, I've got a creative mind. Every time I read something, especially if I'm reading just a book, I can. For me, it's a skill, but sometimes it can be a bit hard, especially when you read stuff like that. It's like every time I read a book, I can't help but watch it in my head as if I'm watching it on the TV. So just listening to that, I could actually see in my head if it's put into a lot of detail, I could vividly see it in my head, how it plays out, how it goes out with the story, and it's
absolutely crazy when you think about it. But right, let's get back to the story.
Yeah. So when they went back to Spawn Ranch in the early hours of August 9th, they told Charlie what happened, and he wasn't very happy with it.
What do you mean he wasn't very happy with it? Surely it was like exactly kind of what he wanted.
It seems he was displeased with the panic of the victims. So I guess in his mind, it would have been they got in, they killed everyone, they wrote pig or political piggies again in the wall, and then got out of there. I guess he didn't like that some of them managed to escape for a few seconds.
He thought the whole thing was a bit too messy, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
Well, I say good way for him.
Yes. So he that day he ordered 6 family members, just 4 from the previous night, plus Leslie Van Houten and Steve Clem Grogan to go with him. He was going to show them how to do it.
When you say show him how to do it, like a murder?
Yeah, so he was going to
kill someone else.
Teach them how to actually do it.
Fuck.
So he told Linda Kazabian where to go, and they ended up at LaBianca's home. So Lino LaBianca and Rosemary LaBianca's home. Now, nobody's actually sure why he picked that house. There's no definite reason.
But it sounds like they're too calculated for it just to be a driving down the street, let's pick a house.
Yeah, so they drove quite a few hours looking around.
Yeah, so they must have been very calculated in what they were doing.
So, most people agree that he chose that house based on the fact that one time he went to a party nearby, so he knew
the area.
He knew the area.
He knew where it wasn't it wasn't something like where he used to live or somewhere. He's just kind of he knew what he was expecting.
Yeah,
he
he
knew
went to
where
a party
to
there.
go. He knew where to
He knew
get
the
out.
area. And so they parked outside the house, and Manson and Tex Watson, they were the first to enter the house. So they tied them up. Rosemary was in the bedroom, and Lino was in the living room. And they tied them up and promised that they wouldn't hurt them. Right. They were just going to rob them. So I guess to calm them down, don't make any noise.
Just to give them hope.
Just to don't start screaming, we're just going to rob you and leave you alone. Please be quiet. And then Manson left the house. He told some of the girls to wait in the car outside, namely Patricia Krenwinkel and Leslie Van Houten. Oh, sorry. He waited some of the other girls to wait outside, and then Patricia Krenwinkel and Leslie Van Houten to enter the house and murdered the people inside. So some of them stayed in the car. Again, Linda Kasabian, she didn't partake in the murder. She didn't kill anyone. She was just waiting outside.
Do you think in her mind it's kind of like, if I don't get involved, I will be fine? So if this all goes shit, I wasn't actually involved?
Well, I think if she was lucky that she was told to stay in the car, he never actually told her go kill people.
No, that's why I'm saying. Do you think she just believed that if she wasn't actually a part of the murder itself, she wouldn't get punishment, or she would have a bit more of a lenient sentence, and that's the only way to convince her to do it. That might have been her psychology, but you never really know with these type of things. It could literally just be she has good eyes, so you stay in the car and just tell us if there's someone coming.
Yeah. So when Van Houten and Krenwinkel went into the house, they went to find Rosemary, who was in the bedroom, and Tex Watson stood over Lino LaBianca. Lino LaBianca then seemed to sense that something wasn't quite right, that this wasn't just going to be a robbery, and that they're going to get out of there safe. So he started to struggle, and Watson stabbed him in the neck.
So they went there to prove that you've done it wrong, and they went there. And
Charles Manson went you've done it wrong, here's how you do it.
And then
he went back out and told other people to kill again.
And so again, by the sounds of it, it didn't go to plan either.
Yeah. So-
you don't stab someone in the neck.
Yeah, so
If you're there to do it properly, I know it sounds gruesome, but if you're going there to do it properly, you're not stabbing them in the neck, you're not stabbing them in the back, you're not doing any of that. You're there just to make it. I don't know. It might have been his mentality of let's make it gruesome.
apparently Lino started saying that please don't stab me anymore. And in the bedroom, Rosemary could hear the struggle and her husband screaming.
That's fucked.
So she's just in the bedroom hearing her husband screaming, and I guess she also realized, oh shit,
She's next.
he's next. So she fought back against Kruwinkel and Van Houten, and Van Houten, angry, went to the kitchen and brought back several utensils, including knives. And Rosemary pleaded for her life, and saying that they could take anything, and she wouldn't call the police. And
That must have been really rough for her to know that
yeah,
she was giving them everything and that wasn't enough.
yeah. Van Houten testified in 1971 that she said that as it seemed, the more she said police, the more I panicked. So Van Houten held Rosemary down while Kruwinkel stabbed her in the neck. And
So
kept
by the
stabbing.
sounds of it, that went a little bit better
Yeah.
than the first.
They stabbed her so hard the knife bent. Like, how hard do you have to stab somebody to bend the knife?
How about we say maybe it was a shit knife?
Maybe.
Try to look at the positive side of life sometimes. Maybe they had a Poundland knife and it and it bent. But even still, that's fucked.
Since they couldn't kill her, they screamed for Watson to help them. And Watson came in and gave another knife to Van Houten. And they kept stabbing her. When she was dead, she was stabbed 41 times.
Why? What? If you know someone's dead, you've done your job.
When she stopped struggling, I guess that's when she stopped. They stopped. And by then, they had stabbed her 41 times. I mean, Jesus.
Just
Yeah. They also carved war into Lino's chest.
what? For like going back to their whole race war thing.
Yeah. And they stabbed a fork in his abdomen.
Well, just like like a knife and fork.
And then, like the crimes of war, they used the blood to rise death to the pigs, and they misspelled helter skelter.
So not only are they murderers and
They're stupid.
completely crazy, but they're completely illiterate.
Yeah.
I was about to say something. I know, I refuse to say that. Continue.
Yeah. And then because they're not horrible enough, they showered in the home, they pat their dogs, and they left.
That is adding insult to injury. Not only are you dead, then your murderers are just chilling in your shower. And then... Isn't that like rule number 1? Don't leave your evidence at the scene, so you go for a fucking shower.
Oh, like I said,
I
wiping
know
away
this is
the
what they
evidence.
wanted, but isn't that like rule number 1? Like, don't have a shower at the scene. You leave your hair, you leave your fingerprints, you leave everything behind.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they wanted to get caught.
Oh yeah, no, but they definitely wanted to get caught.
They didn't want to get caught.
They wanted the attention without getting
They
caught.
want the attention because they wanted the Black Panthers to be blamed for it.
But they didn't want to go to jail because
They didn't want to be actually caught.
Imagine if they went to jail, like to try to invoke like a black like uprising or whatever. They would get ruined in jail. Like they would have got fucked.
I mean, Manson wanted to be in jail, in prison. Not anymore, I think.
Not that's what I was going to say. I don't think he wanted to be there anymore.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, if you're trying to invoke like a race war and you turn up to prison the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get like all like the black prisoners on you. You're going to get screwed.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they had a shower. That's fucked.
Yeah. So while that was happening, Manson, when he left, got back into the car with Linda Kasabian and handed her Rosemary's wallet and told her to drop it on the sidewalk as soon as they arrived at the black neighborhood. Again, to try and blame the murders on black people.
They turned up and they left all their DNA and everything at the crime scene. Why didn't they turn up in like fucking full body like outfits that you ain't gonna do any DNA, and then you plant like proper evidence? I don't know. I think that might just because we like listening to like crime podcasts and things like that. But they clearly didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah. So, yeah, he wanted the black person to find the wallet and use the credit cards, apparently, and so the police would think they were the LaBianca killer. But halfway through, he changed his plans, because he's fucking crazy, and instead told Kasabian to pull into a gas station and in Sylmar, which is 20 miles from Waverly Drive, which was LaBianca's house, and leave the wallet in the woman's bathroom.
Okay.
I don't know how that's better. Yeah. She didn't leave it though, she just hid it in the toilet tank, in fact. And the wallet would be found for another 4 months. So, unfortunately, it wasn't the police that found them, was their kids. Leno and Rosemary's children found them dead. Leno was in the living room floor with a bloody pillowcase covering his head, a cord tied around his neck, and his hands behind his back tied together with a leather thong.
Leather thong?
Thong.
As in, like, you know... Is it like a thong or is it like an American thong? I don't know what I'm saying. Is it what I'm thinking in my head type thong?
So I'm reading from an article, it says thong. So I'm guessing maybe.
I'm guessing it's going to be that. Why would you wear a leather thong? Surely that's going to be like horrible to wear.
They weren't, I don't know. It was the 60s.
Yeah, that's true.
And Rosemary was on her bedroom floor wearing one of her favorite dresses, blue and white, bunched over her head, exposing her naked body.
Disgusting.
It's so fucking gross.
So were they like sexually assaulted or anything like that, or was it literally
No,
pure
they just
murder?
he was just murdered. I think they like
Not
pulled
to
it out
say
to
that
think
makes
that
it
people,
any better or any worse, but I'm just saying that.
And I think they wanted maybe to police to think that she was sexually assaulted, but there was no evidence of that happening. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. So how were they caught?
So essentially they turned up, they did the job, and they wanted to kind of provoke this war that, as if anyone knows history, didn't happen. And how the fuck did they actually get caught? Like what events actually led up to them?
So they found about 3 weeks after, 20 days after, a 10-year-old found the gun used in the Tate murders. 10-year-old, yeah. So he had found the gun because he threw the gun over the hills, and they found it.
Imagine explaining that to your kid.
I mean,
yeah, don't worry about that. That's just a toy gun, but it's covered in blood and horrible. Like, you're not going to turn around to your 10-year-old and be like, "Don't worry, it was only used in a gruesome murder."
Suppose they find the 10-year-old's DNA on there, and the 10-year-old gets done for the murders. That'd be pretty mental.
Mental.
Yeah.
Chicken.
Oriental.
I like it. No, it wasn't the Chinese that killed him. But it's just really difficult to kind of process. Like, I think as we all watch like crime, like documentaries and stuff, it's so difficult to kind of put yourself in their shoes sometimes. But yeah, just how did they get caught? Do you know?
I somehow missed that. I'm so stupid. So yeah, so they give the gun. Well, the kid gives the gun to the dad, and the dad takes it to the police, and the police does nothing with it.
The police did nothing with it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as a British person, like, if I saw a gun, there would be, like, fucking SWAT teams and helicopters coming out. But I imagine, this isn't throwing shade at Americans, but I imagine because there's so many guns there that it isn't the worst thing in the world to find a gun, I imagine. Just putting it in perspective.
Yeah. How did they not? They found a gun, which probably had blood in it because he hit one of the victims in the head over with it. So there's probably was blood. He stabbed multiple people, so he had probably blood on his hands. So the gun for sure had to have blood on it.
But
there's
you
no
say
way
it was
that
found
gun
on
was
the
clean.
hill.
Yeah.
Surely the rainwater and everything else would have.
Well, it's California in the summer. There's no rain.
Let's say for argument's sake there was rain, then they probably would have washed a lot of it away. And so when the police probably got it, they probably saw it and went, it's a standard gun that anyone can get from a gun shop. It's got no blood on it. There's no reason to take it to like your crime investigation unit to get it tested out. We'll just presume that it's just, some crazy woman's like gun who carries it around and lost it or something. That's what I would presume anyway.
Yeah. So the police first ruled out that the Tate murders and the LaBianca murders had no connection.
Okay.
So they were investigated separately, which I think that was like, why? They were stabbed. Both of the victims were stabbed. They left tons of like blood everywhere. They wrote in blood pig on the Tate murders and other shit on the so there's stuff in common.
Yeah, but we're looking at it from
it's like Los Angeles, not that they're like 100 miles apart.
Yeah, but you got to remember, there's going to be different people in the investigations, and without knowing the cases that always go through, you aren't necessarily going to. It's good in hindsight that we can look back and go, obviously these were going to be connected, but when they're time apart and they're so gruesome that you don't want to comprehend in your mind that there's a group of people going around doing these fucking horrific crimes that are going to do it to loads of people. So I'd presume that they would have went and investigated them separately, and then later on went, oh fuck, we've actually got like a murderer running around doing crazy shit.
So one of the reasons they thought it was different people that did the murders was because in the Tate house they found drugs. So they thought it was drug transition gone wrong, and I guess drug dealers actually killed him. Which, I mean, fair, but again, it's the 60s. It's Hollywood. Who's not going to have drugs in their house?
Yeah, that's true. And especially 1969, where you had like the hippie movement going on. You had everyone high as fuck on LSD. Back then, there were drugs that were completely legal that are now illegal.
Yeah.
So that they probably just presumed it was another, completely normal group of people that, just so happens to do a bit of acid or a bit of weed or a bit on the side. So if it was today's day and age, you probably would look into that a lot more.
Yeah, so the first person arrested was William Garretson. He was the caretaker of the Sharon Tate's house. So he was arrested, although he was released 2 days after taking a polygraph.
Oh yeah, that was the old way that they used to try and test if they were telling the truth or lying. Which now looking back, it isn't very concrete
It's very like
it can
it's
show up
not
a lot.
it's not hard to like or there's books on it how to pass a polygraph test and still be
it
lying.
gives a lot of false positives and a lot of false negatives and like positive negatives.
Yeah, it's not a good way to like rule out a suspect.
No, I don't know what they do nowadays. They call them lie detectors, but
That's a polygraph.
well, yeah, they've got new versions of it, but I doubt that they're I think that without evidence, they probably aren't going to use a polygraph and just be like, "Hey, you've done it, right? And you failed it."
So decades later, he states that he did saw some of the murders happening. He just didn't tell anyone. I guess because he was afraid he was going to be. If he said, "Yeah, I saw them die and didn't do anything," he's going to be also put in prison. Maybe.
Would make sense.
Maybe.
I mean, you got to think to yourself. Put yourself in their shoes. You got murderers on the loose at more than one person. You've seen what's happened. They could easily turn on you. You could easily wake up the next day and have them in your house. So not saying anything is probably the safest thing to do.
Yeah.
Because the police can only be there like protection, I presume, for a certain period of time before they say actually. We can't, you can't give 10 years worth of protection. That's just not viable. So I would imagine that he was scared. I would be.
Yeah, so on the August 12th, LAPD told that there was no connection to the murders. And then on August 16th, the sheriff's office raided Spawn Ranch and arrested Manson and 25 others as suspects in a major auto theft ring. So basically, they've been stealing Beetles, Volkswagen Beetles, and converting them into dune buggies in case the world ended, Helter Skelter, all that shit. So they were caught.
So are we saying the Beatles and Helter Skelter was going to save us?
Yeah, not the Beatles.
But Beatles.
The Beatles, maybe.
Not the Beatles, but VW Nazi Beatles.
Well, they were being like converted into dune buggies.
So are we saying that we're on a way down? Is he's getting? They're all looking at him now, but not from the murders, but from stealing cars.
Yeah. So they're
basically it's gone full circle. It's gone back to how he used to be put in prison back in the day.
Maybe because they were released a few days later.
Yes.
Because they found weapons, but they misstated the warrant, so they messed up and they couldn't keep them in jail. Which makes sense.
So somebody forgot to give them the memo.
Yeah. In August, the La Bianca detectives noted a possible connection between the bloody writings at La Bianca's house and the singing group, the Beatles' most recent album. So they got the Helter Skelter reference. They were Beatles fans. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. It's fucking crazy. Anyway, mid-October, they're still working separately until La Bianca team checked the sheriff's office about possible similar crimes, which then led them to the Hinman case. Remember the Hinman case?
Yes.
Political piggies and all that shit. You know, the case that they murdered more people to throw them away from the site.
Oh, yeah.
It worked. They also learned that the Hinman detectives had spoken with Biol Soleil's girlfriend, Kitty Lutzinger. She was arrested a few days earlier with the members of the Manson family. So the arrests had taken place at the desert ranches. Sorry about that. So after the Spawn Ranch, they moved into the alternative ranches that they had prepared in Death Valley.
What was kind of like end of the world, worst case scenario type thing, or was there people living
so
there?
When they moved to Spawn Ranch, I mentioned that they also took over some other ranches.
Yes.
Just in case. So they moved over there.
Were they paying the owners of those insects as well?
And I think there's just abandoned, and they took advantage. So, and on to the authorities, they just... Yeah. The family members... What the fuck?
Yeah, his family members.
Started searching Death Valley for a hole in the ground, the access to the bottomless pit, where the end of the world would start, and they would be safe. I don't know, it's some more like Charles Manson bullshit.
That's fucking crazy.
So they were looking for this bottomless pit.
What are they gonna find? The fucking devil down there? What is this,
I don't know.
Satan?
It
Is
was
this like
just some
Doctor Who
weird
and that? It's Satan
bullshit.
pit, and you're just gonna dig down? It's
just some weird bullshit that Charles Manson was spewing at them. Like, honestly.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So they're digging for this pit. Well, not digging for this pit. They're trying to find this pit.
Yeah.
Obviously, they didn't find it. But so they all believe that it was actually a thing.
Yeah. So the park rangers, some officers from the California Highway Patrol and Sheriff's Office, they raided both Myers Ranch and Barker Ranch after following clues and left when the family members burned an earth mover owned by the Death Valley National Monument. What's an earth mover? Tim, can you search for an
earth mover? Like a massive digger.
Okay.
So when you're doing construction, it's a big fuck off digger that you literally just pick up shit ton of earth and you move it somewhere. It's in the net.
Yeah. So they burned it and left a bunch of evidence. So the police, the highway patrol, and rangers just follow it
all the way
to the other two ranches and raided them. The raiders found stolen the dune buggies and other vehicles, and they arrested 24 people, including Manson. The highway patrol officer found Manson hiding in a cabinet beneath Barker's bathroom sink. So he was hiding underneath a bathroom sink inside a cabinet.
What, hoping not to be fucking found?
Yeah, during the raids because of the fucking earth mover. That also tells us how small he actually was. He was a tiny dude.
Like how? What do you mean? Like 5 foot something, 4 foot something?
I think it was 5'4". I could be
basically
wrong.
tiny.
He was tiny, to hide underneath the bathroom sink inside a cabinet. That's a tiny, tiny man. So they arrested him with no idea. 5'2". Yeah.
That's not that small.
For a man.
For a woman, no, but for a man, yes, definitely.
Yeah. So the officer arrested all of them without knowing that actually they were arresting the murderers, which is kind of crazy. So the La Bianca detectives connected members of a motorcycle gang, Manson trying to enlist as his bodyguards while the family was at Swan Ranch. I don't know why he needed bodyguards. Oh, I think it's probably because he was afraid people were going to kill him.
Fair.
I don't know why. Okay. So the gang members provided information between that linked Manson and the murderers. And then a dormitory mate of Susan Atkins informed the LAPD of the family's involvement in the crimes. So Atkins was bragged about it a little bit because she was fucking crazy.
What?
And her
it's
roommate,
not something to brag about, definitely
no.
not.
And her roommate was like, I'm gonna tell the police. Crazy. So she was booked for the Hinman murder, which she had nothing to do with, but she told the detectives that she'd done it. Why?
Why not just come 100% clean at that point?
Yeah.
I presume it's just because of the control that he had over them.
Yeah, so she was transferred to a detention center in California, and again she began bragging to other inmates about the murders that she committed. So she was somebody that was proud of what she did.
So not only is she like mind controlled, she's also like almost mind controlling others. Well, not mind controlling, but just kind of she's trying to become something that she isn't.
Or maybe she is.
We never know.
Yeah.
Well, we might know. Let's find out.
Yeah. So on December 1st, acting on the information from Susan Atkins' bunkmates, they arrested Watson, Kruwinkle, and Kasabian in the Tate case. The suspects from the LaBianca murders were noted. Since Manson and Atkins were already in custody because of the other raids, where they found a bunch of stolen stuff, they were not mentioned in the arrest warrant.
So it's still on. So it wasn't that stuff's not going to be on his.
It wasn't
file.
still connected to them, in files.
So
right now, it was just the other murderers, Tex Watson.
Just kind of notes
Kruwinkle.
based on him,
Yeah.
but not like anything official.
He wasn't official connected to it. The connection between the LaBianca case and Van Houten was also among those arrests near the Death Valley and had not yet been recognized. So still a bunch of people, not a bunch, but a few people that weren't recognized for the murders that they actually did.
Yeah.
So Watson and Kruwinkle were already under arrest with the authorities of McKinney, Texas, and Alabama. What? Yes. So I think they tried to run away.
So essentially, at this point, the ringleader.
My notes suck. Sorry, guys.
The ringleader, basically Charles Manson.
He was under arrest. He was
They
under
weren't
arrest.
they weren't looking at
because-
him.
No, he was under arrest for the stolen stuff that they
Yeah.
found at the other two ranches. So Watson and Kruwinkle, they tried to run away, but they were picked up, and because the LAPD sent out a warrant to other states, look out for these people.
Here's our top 5 list of what they look like or what they do and things like that. Just if they come into your state, keep an eye on them. Which is fucking crazy. Imagine being that police police office unit that is, you've got a murderer, or you've got someone who's connected to a murderer, but you can't place them there, or you can't do anything with it. But you have to go so far as to say to the neighbouring states, by the way, just to give you a heads up, we can't arrest these. So just keep an eye on them. They might go do a bit of stabby and a bit of shooty. So keep an eye on them, guys. Instead of going, let's try and put these fuckers away from prison for the rest of their lives like they should be. Let's just leave them to roam free and convince other people.
Yeah, in similar fashion, Linda Cabasian also ran away.
Yeah.
And she was picked up in New Hampshire on December the 2nd. Yeah, so they actually had fingerprints of Kruwinkle's and Watson's in evidence, and they were augmented to show the public. They finally linked the gun that the kid had picked up to the murders, which took them 3 months, 4 months.
Fucking took them for 3 or 4. But saying that in police terms, that's a couple of days. We've seen things like this take years to get any sort of things. It's 3 or 4 months sounds like a long time. It isn't.
I don't know.
It's just one of those things, definitely. But I don't know. 3 or 4 months doesn't sound like a long time, but from record now, it's October, so September. That was only what was you doing 3 months ago?
Oh, wait, sorry. So they didn't link. Once they got the fingerprints, they didn't link the gun to the murderers. Sorry about that. No. So in mid-December, the LA Times, they published a crime account based on information that Susan Atkins gave her attorney.
Yep.
So they basically published a story about what happened. And then the father made several phone calls, which then to the LAPD, saying that they found the gun. And they're like, we gave you the gun.
No.
Like, you have the gun. Like,
It's like,
what the
it's
fuck?
like you've got the evidence.
Yeah. And then
Henceforth, go.
Then they like finally connected it to the murders with ballistic tests.
But saying that, you've got to
So
remember
this
this was way before,
yeah, that's fair.
this is way before like ultraviolet lights
Yeah.
and like dusting of evidence. Back then,
But also, he had to do like several calls. It wasn't like,
back then
hello,
you've got to remember,
you have the
like,
gun,
if-
like several times. Like,
if
you have the
today's
gun,
day and
you have the
age-
gun, you have the gun.
No, I'm telling you, if it was this day and age, what would happen was that gun, if it was any way related to anything, you send it away, you get it tested, whoever's DNA is on there, fair enough. If it's a gone owner, it gets taken back to it or whatever. But you don't, because we can do that now.
Yeah.
Back then, it would kind of been like, we got a gun, it might have a bit of blood on it, it might have this, but we ain't going to find out who's on whose blood this is really, without fingerprints or stuff like that. And
But again, like they had bullets from.
yeah, but you
They
got to
could have
remember back
run
then they
ballistics
didn't
tests.
have like a computer database that they can go here is fingerprint, here find please, click a button.
But they had ballistic tests. So this
But
kid
ballistic
found a
tests are
gun
really
near
not-
the Tate's house, and they didn't think to like compare it.
But by
to,
some of
like-
it, it's not a very uncommon weapon. Lots of people, you got to remember, this is America, this isn't the UK. Lots of people have guns, and I imagine this is a very
Still, but like there was a murder where people were shot, and a couple miles away in the bushes, we found a gun that probably has blood in it for sure. Had blood in it. Let's not run a test. It's just
But
precaution.
you got to remember that some of these like like police departments are huge. It's I guarantee it's very easy to try and
It's
not.
the LAPD.
Yeah, they're
I'm
massive.
guessing they had an homicide working on it. Just give the guns to the homicide department. It doesn't seem that hard. But they did a shitty job.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they haven't. But yeah, so after the test, what actually happened? Well, not test, but what happened after that?
So ABC also saw the newspaper article. So they got a crew and they themselves went looking for the bloody clothes.
Fair enough.
And they found them.
So are you saying a TV network found more evidence
Then the police.
than the LAPD?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds about right.
That's fucked up.
It's like if the BBC starts like coming around and just start like finding evidence for a fucking like murder case. That's not.
The only thing they never found was the knives that they discarded en route. So none, the ABC nor the LAPD could find those knives, which is unfortunate. Although ABC looked for them first, and then the LAPD was like, maybe we should search for it.
Yeah, that might
Just
be a
maybe.
good idea.
Just maybe.
If a fucking news network and like a TV station find more evidence than you can.
Yeah, a knife was found behind the cushion of a chair in Tate living room. Was apparently Susan Atkins, who lost her knife during the attack. So she lost a knife during the attack. I was like, yeah, she was fine. And they found it in the cushions. In the living room, I guess.
So
It's a fucking
those guys went there, tried to do a better job, and then fucked up more than the first lot.
What?
So no, the murder itself.
Susan Atkins.
Yeah, they.
So this was the first murder. She
She
remembered suddenly, like, I'll have to...
So the first murder was fucked up more than the second, but the second murder was also still fucked up. Which is crazy. Like, it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. Well, it does, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Um.
That's crazy.
So, what was like the prosecution? Like, what actually happened?
So the main prosecution witness was Linda Kasabian, which after she was arrested, she like, I'll tell you everything if you give me immunity.
Oh, she do? Like,
Because she ran away like almost immediately after the Bianca murders. So she didn't run away after the murders because she was afraid for her life, and her daughter's life was at the ranch still. And then after the La Bianca murders, she like grabbed her daughter and ran away and went back home.
so she essentially she just wanted to make sure she was safe. She didn't really care about not making them safe, but just wanted to make sure she was safe.
And her daughter, yeah.
That sounds like. Do you know what? That is the most reasonable thing I've heard all this story.
Yeah. So like she was a main witness and she told everything what happened and she got immunity because of it. She never went to prison for basically standing there and doing nothing.
Do you know what? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Imagine if you were brainwashed or like feared for your life, and you just stood there and did nothing and couldn't do anything, or didn't have it in you to do anything. The last thing you wanted to be doing is being chucked in prison. I kind of feel sorry for her, you know. Not that she could have went to the police, but I can imagine, yeah, if she had a kid, it's not very hard for them to turn around and say, by the way, if you say anything, we'll kill her. So I think she just waited to that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of feel sorry for her, you know. I really do.
I don't know if I feel sorry for her.
Yeah, but that's just because you're savage.
I guess. Yeah, so Susan Atkins also tried to make a deal with prosecution so they wouldn't seek the death penalty. And she was supposed to like give testimony, but then she didn't because she's crazy.
Because she's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, so they were like all charged with 7 counts of murder and 1 of conspiracy. So Manson was like charged with the murders.
So how many years? How many years did they get?
So they were charged with all of them were charged with the death penalty, I think. Yeah.
Thank fuck for that. Like,
yeah.
Bring back the death penalty.
I disagree with you.
Why not? Like, if you killed someone, why shouldn't you be killed yourself? And if it's 100% proved, what's the point?
Like, isn't it harder to live in prison for the rest of your life than being killed?
Well, it depends. If it's I'd say it's fine if the prison's really fucking horrible and you're going to hate the rest of your life. But if it's going to be you're going to sit there playing PlayStation and chilling, which there is a lot of prisons like that.
Not really.
There is.
Where?
If you Google it, they've got fucking PlayStations and TVs and that lot in their cells.
Where is this?
Okay, granted, it's the UK.
No, that's bullshit.
No, it's not bullshit.
I don't believe that.
I know that. So it's not. I know it's not bullshit, but it does happen. But yeah, so it's
yeah.
But
By the way, Manson acted as his own attorney. So he was his own attorney because he was crazy.
Did he have any law background?
No.
So did he? So he had no. He had no experience, expertise, or knowledge of how to be his own attorney, but he just believed himself to be some like godlike thing that he can just do whatever he likes. That sounds like very maniacal. That sounds really like.
Yeah, it very afterwards he was revoked because he, of course, was fucking crazy and just disturbed court. So they took away that right for him to act as his own attorney.
I mean, I'd fucking hope so. I don't. If you can decide you're your own attorney and you can't defend the case, shit out of luck. But if you can't do it, then you shouldn't be allowed to have another go at it, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
So the first judge, William Keene, was replaced with Judge Charles H. Older because Manson filed a claim of prejudice. So basically he said that Keene was prejudiced against them. So he was replaced with another judge.
It must be really hard to be a judge when you know you've got an absolute fucking crazy, like a nutcase sitting across from you.
Yeah.
And unless you've got enough evidence against him, or her, they can walk free and start murdering again. But you know in your heart of heart, like, I could put this person away for the rest of my life, or I could send him to the death penalty, but you know what? He might just walk free. I couldn't do it. I would end up just being completely prejudiced and saying, "You're a fucking nutcase. You killed people.
Well,
I ain't
good
gonna.
thing you're not a judge.
I'm
then.
not letting you get away with this.
Good thing you're
Screw
not a judge.
you guys." Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so on the first day of
Please
testimony,
don't make me a judge.
Manson appeared in court with an X carved into his forehead.
Hey,
Not
what?
painted, carved.
What was it?
An X carved into his forehead.
Yeah, what was carved into it?
What?
An X, like an actual like X, like marks a spot.
Yeah, he carved an X in his forehead, like right between his eyes.
So is that where X marks a spot for when someone wants to shoot
And
him?
he said that he was considered inadequate and incompetent to speak or defend himself, and had X'd himself from the world. Which makes sense, I guess. Yeah. The following weekend, the female defendants also marked an X on their foreheads, as did most of the family members within a day or so. So all of the family members, those that were on trial and weren't just carved, like just got an X on their foreheads in solidarity with Charles Manson.
They,
So fucked up though. It's so fucked up.
they all put X's on their forehead because the person who manipulated, like MK Ultra'd them to do it, ordered it.
Not to them. He was a saint. He was Jesus to them.
Imagine, like, I'd like to like talk to them like now, like if they've still got the mark in their head or whatever happened to them, like saying, "What the fuck were you doing? Like, surely you could have realised that you must, people in your mind, like in your mind as a person, you must realise what's actually happening, or at least have an inkling at the back of your mind to go, and you know what, this isn't human behaviour. This isn't what you should be doing." But
Yeah.
unless, the only thing I can think is, were they so swept up with it, and they were so, what's the word? It's like anything, you're so deeply involved that even if you know what you're doing is bad, you would keep doing it. Like, for example, everyone knows smoking is bad. You can tell someone a million times that smoking is bad, but people might start smoking, get addicted to it, and you're never getting out of it.
Well, people still do get addicted to
Yeah,
smoking.
and by the sounds of it, it's kind of like that, where it's just you're so deeply involved in it, you know it's bad for you, but you're still gonna keep doing it.
I don't know. I guess.
Um,
Anyway, years
hey,
later.
we're not like psychologists here.
Yeah.
We're just a bunch of random people.
Years later, Manson turned that X into a swastika.
As you do.
In prison, he joined like a white supremacist group.
As you do.
Yeah. So the prosecution argued that the main reason of Manson's crimes were the triggering of Helter Skelter, which they were right about, and that the bloody white album references that they wrote in blood were correlated with testimony about Manson's predictions about the murder blacks would commit at the outset of Helter Skelter.
Which, as we all know, never happened, thankfully.
Never happened yet.
No. That's not even get there. So, what ended up happening to him?
Yeah, so they were all convicted, and they were convicted of the murders and sentenced to death penalty. However, death penalty was ruled unlawful a few years later. 2 years, I think? I'm not sure. I think 2 years. Anyway, and they were convicted to life.
So so did Charles Manson end up living out his days in prison?
He did. He tried to get parole several times, which was denied.
Thank God.
Every time, and he died November the 19th, 2017.
At the age?
In the prison
How old was he at the time?
83, in Bakersfield, California.
So going back to what we said earlier, he got the worst outcome in your mind. He wasn't killed.
Yeah.
He was lived out the rest of his life knowing that the 4 walls he was in
Was it?
was it.
Yeah. And he tried to be cut free several times, and he was also denied.
That's
Same with several other family members.
so the other family members, I presume, all got life that kind of died in prison as well.
I
Or,
believe
like
so,
the majority of them.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. That is crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm really glad that it's not. It's one of those stories where it actually has an ending. Too many times I've listened to like stories where you get to the end and the murderer's still out there, or they got let out on a technicality. I think it's really great that he actually lived out his days. What about you?
Yeah, I agree on that one. I'll say I've been quiet during this. This story has blown my mind completely. I knew it was bad, but I didn't realise it had all this stuff involved in it and all this mess.
Yeah.
So, I agree. I think it's good he's gone. And it's just nice to have that sort of closure on all that madness.
Do you know the one thing we haven't spoken about though? The one thing that I think we should be talking about. You've got these families, and you've got these people who were murdered, who had their own lives, who had their own thoughts, their own feelings, and just were taken out of it because of their colour, because of what they were. They were murdered for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing as a humanity that we have. I think I won't talk about politics as such, but one thing as like a whole world we're starting to lose is this idea that everyone's a human person, like a human being, and might need help. And every day we're looking more and more like as a whole society, more Charles Manson-y and more family than anything else. And we should really be remembering the people who were like killed. We shouldn't remember Charles Manson as this person. We should remember the people that weren't ever alive, more than anything.
Charles Manson was also found guilty of the murders of Gary Hinman
Good.
and Donald Shorty Shaya, who was a stuntman at Spawn Ranch and was killed approximately 10 days after August the 16th, which was the first raid to Spawn Ranch. And the family members, the ones that, not all of them immediately got on with their lives and did normal stuff. In the 75, Squeaky Fromm, which was a family member, tried to assassinate the US President Gerald Ford in Sacramento.
Of course.
She did not succeed it,
Yeah.
fortunately, and was sentenced to 15 years to life, becoming the first person sentenced under United States Code, which made it a federal crime to attempt to assassinate the President of the United States.
I reckon, okay.
She was released in parole in 2009. Although she didn't kill anyone, she tried to, but she didn't kill anyone.
I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's the end of that story. I know there was other things that happened on the family, what kind of happened.
To the other members afterwards.
To the other members.
I think almost
but
all of them
I
died.
don't think that needs to be going into.
Yeah.
I think that's good enough framework to understand what happened
Yeah.
and who it happened to.
I think Kruwinkle, it's the only one that's still alive, and she's in prison still.
Good. Hope she
So,
fucking
yeah.
rots.
That was Charles Manson and his family crimes. And
Well,
I apologize for all of the mistakes that we did, because
It was-
probably a ton.
It wasn't even a crime. It was just. there's not even a word to describe what he wanted to do. If he succeeded, there would have been a lot more murders. People, if Helter Skelter would have happened, so many things wouldn't have happened afterwards. And I think that's probably the best outcome was Helter Skelter never
Well, Helter
happened.
Skelter would have never happened. That's the thing. Helter Skelter didn't exist. He made it up.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying if Helter Skelter would have happened, it would have been a lot worse than the outcome we did. What happened? So
What?
he wanted a fucking race war. Like, if a race war would have happened during in the way that he wanted, it would have had so many more murders.
Well, yeah, but that was never going to happen.
No, that's why I'm saying
Your
that's it.
argument is very weird. That's not going
No, all I'm saying is I'm glad that what he wanted to happen didn't happen, and he ended
Fair.
up sitting.
Yeah.
He ended up sitting his rest of his lonely little life in a fucking jail cell,
Rotting away.
Yeah.
And the people, like I say, we should be thinking about is all those who he murdered and all those lives, all those futures that never happened.
And their families as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, by the way, Sharon Tate's sister was a huge figure in keeping them in prison and keeping the judges, keeping denying parole. She fought for that.
Fucking good on her.
So,
So
good on her.
Good on her. But yeah, that is definitely the end of this long podcast.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's been a very depressing one. Next week
We're talking about fast food, and specifically, we are going to be exposing McDonald's, speak about all the secrets, what happens behind the scenes, and some horror stories.
Yeah.
So yeah, we will
very
be
similar theme. We are consistent in that.
Well, it's definitely going to be a more interesting one of more discussion than a
I
story.
disagree. Nothing's more interesting than this, but whatever. It's going to be a lighter episode.
Oh yeah, definitely. We need something lighter.
No
than-
dead people on this one, fortunately.
Well, you say that, but fast food kills so many people because
Obesity kills people, and
Yeah,
diseases
fucking-
linked to obesity. It's not fast food that actually kills them.
yeah, fast
technically.
food does fucking kill them. Like if you get addicted.
Okay, let's leave this for next week.
I'm going to leave this on one thing to think about. If fast food, if companies make fast food and make it so addicting that they only wanted to, so they make fast food so addicting that people get addicted and just make themselves obese. Surely they must be at least accountable for it. If you make a shitload of, if you make food that is so bad for you,
It's not the food that's addicted. It has to do with other things.
if
Okay,
you
let's
make-
discuss
yeah,
it next
exactly.
Let's leave this here,
Yeah.
and we discuss this all next week.
And yeah, so we'll discuss it next week.
Yeah.
Tim's going to take the reign of that one. He's going to present in it, like we do. We take it in turns each week. So once every 4 weeks, one of us will spearhead this. So we'll be talking about fast food next week.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to us,
Goodbye.
guys.
Goodbye.
And
Bye-bye.
for staying with us. Bye. Adios.
Adios, amigos.
Auf Wiedersehen.